Hello, I'm Mark from Trail Buddy. Welcome back to our Ice Bear Champion build, where we're trying to get this guy to look as much as we can like an original Trail 70, and we're shooting for the 1978. So we've got some stuff that we're going to probably try to redo just a little bit, mainly the taillight bracket. I was looking at our bike in the showroom, which is my 78, and I noticed that the rear taillight bracket assembly is actually quite a bit different than the earlier years. So we're going to go through this and figure out what we can do to make our taillight bracket look more like this. Also, for this year, this unit is black instead of chrome. So that'll kind of help us a little bit if we make some prototype parts. We kind of bolt or weld stuff together. We can spray it black instead of trying to get it chromed. Also, what's different in terms of the size is the later year taillight assemblies here. So I found one here, brand new assembly, that hopefully we'll be able to have available to sell too. And we're going to get this here on our taillight, again, to make it look more true. I was hunting up and down all over the internet, and I found these really cool blinkers here that look very close to the original Honda blinkers, but they're not so huge. Like the Honda ones are, oh boy, about 2 inches in diameter or so. So these look and appear very, very similar to the originals. Even look like they got little stays here, brackets, but they're quite a bit smaller, and they look really, really nice, and they fit nicely into these original Ice Bear mounting locations, mainly here to for our taillight assembly to our luggage rack. So we'll get these on. These are our cool scores, so we'll be able to put these up here later too in another month or so. So we talked about taillight, and then also we got our decals ready to go. So we'll talk about how we're going to get these gone, what we need to take off. They've kind of got our little DOT stuff here, so we're going to have to make sure we miss this. So we're going to probably be a little more forward than an original Honda, but again, this is more of a tribute bike. It's just supposed to be fun. So we've got this one. We don't want to spend the money on the big real Honda, and we want to beat up on this bike and not our real Honda is kind of the theme of this. Now, also, that kit came with these side badges here, but unfortunately, these side badges are designed to fit inside the, I don't know, a concaved surface where this is kind of like stamped in, and it has a different size than what the Ice Bear does. So we'll hold this up there and we'll show you the difference. And we may or may not try to stick it on, just depending on how different it looks. We'll show the differences of that, but just something to keep in mind if you're buying this and you expect it to fit in there, or your mind is thinking, oh, well, you just like the regular Honda. The Honda area is actually quite a bit bigger. Now, over here on this side, our goal is to get rid of this integrated headlight unit in with the speedometer. So I've bought a couple different things. Now, I got this one off of Amazon. I'm just trying to find stuff that I can get that hopefully I can source with the build. But this one here, unfortunately, is too big. And we'll get some dimensions here and kind of show what we need to look for. So that way, if you're searching for a headlight unit that looks like this, I'll get the dimensions that you'll need so that it can fit here in either these brackets or some of the other brackets that we sell. But this guy, I mean, it looks nice. It is a motorcycle headlight. It does have, you know, on and high beam. So it's correct, but unfortunately it's too big in diameter for the mini trail. So what I've been finding is it's closer to a kind of a Harley or a road bike, kind of a, how do they call them? It's like a spotlight is like this diameter. But we'll get the diameters and we'll show you the difference. Also, what we were going to shoot for too is I've been searching and searching for an analog speedometer that will work with this setup that looks like the similar one here that we've got for our OEM one. Now, we might end up running this, but my goal for this is to try to find parts that all of us can find and buy, and or we can have on our website that'll make it really easy for you guys just to get them if you kind of want to follow this and make it your own, but want to use some of the parts. So I know I've had luck finding or using digital ones, so the shape of the outside will look the same, but it's digital. I was trying to see if I could find an analog. There are some GPS speedometer units out there but they're always so large. They're meant more for full-size motorcycles, which when you're trying to do your scaled down mini trail, it seems to be proving a little bit more difficult with the headlights, taillights. We've scored on the blinkers, but struggling on the speedometer and the headlight so far. But I have used the, I think it's a K&S brand unit for the housing of that speedometer. It looks like this, but it's a digital unit. And it's got a sending unit that comes down. And we can make a bracket here and it'll pick up a little magnet reader. And that you can program to be dead on. So you'll have an accurate reading in your speedometer after you program the circumference of the tire to what the speedometer specs tell you. We might end up going that route, so we'll see what we can do there. And we did end up getting a black chain guard. Now, for tonight, we probably will run out of time where we can't do this, because this takes quite a bit of massaging to do to get to fit on an original frame with an aftermarket motor. So we're going to see what it takes to get something like this on this Ice Bear frame and Ice Bear motor to make it look more original again. Now, if you take this and you hold that up against the unit back there, it really changes the look. And maybe we'll get some shots of that at least tonight before we close out. But we'll dig in and we'll get moving. So earlier I was talking about struggling finding a headlight the right diameter. So I thought I'd take a minute and at least give you guys a measurement. So if you're trying to do the same thing, and we don't quite have them on our site yet, to help you give you a good chances if you don't have access to an original bucket. So here we've got original steel headlight housing, and what is troublesome is the diameters here. So if I hold it together right here, you can kind of see what we're struggling with. Here is just a regular off-the-shelf street motorcycle version, and here is the original Honda Mini Trail 70 unit, and you can see easily quite the difference. Now, you might be able to find one in this diameter, but what they do sometimes on a lot of these smaller bikes is they make this dimension here, where it mounts, these two tabs, a smaller dimension that actually replicates where these would mount. So that actually is something they quite do here with these clone headlight buckets. They kind of neck that down. You can see where it's embossed in to where it mounts. So let's get that measurement here. So that way I know and everybody else knows what you're looking for, you need when you want to try to find something that mounts. So here, where we are 132 millimeters, or 5 3/16 of an inch in the inch system, because apparently we don't like to use the metric system. But so there's our metric number and our English number. So if you're hunting for that, that's the dimension that you need to look out for. So here I have our reproduction early taillight mounting bracket, and here we have the later model year taillight bracket. So what's different between the two, the body here is relatively the same. It's a little bit different here to where it protrudes out. But for what we're trying to do to make it look similar, at first glance, we're not trying to make a total reproduction part. I think we could get pretty close. So what we're going to end up having to make is we'll probably have to get a flange laser cut here that we can use these two holes to bolt onto. And then we will also draw this up here to try to get this that we can put over top of it, because that's what they're originally doing here from Honda. Is what they're doing is they're utilizing this old part here as a strengthening rib, and then they just spot weld it on. One bracket here that they make that we may or may not need is this little reinforcement bracket that goes to where the rear fender mounts through here. So kind of the differences. I think we can make this, our unit here, look very similar to this, and that'll get us closer, kind of some fun details. So I think what we'll do is we'll draw up these pieces here a sec and kind of get her down on some paper, so that way we know when I go over to the CAD system and I draw this up in SolidWorks here, it'll go a lot quicker, and you can kind of get an idea of what we need to do. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to kind of draw what I see. And I'll probably over exaggerate just a little bit. All right, so here we're going to have some kind of a radius. Looks like this is some kind of a radius. So in the center now, we're going to have our little opening so you can get at that nut on the back. We've got our two elongated holes on the top. Then we've got our small elongated holes on the bottom. All right, we'll call this our center line. That. So, reference. I guess I'll draw in metric. So here, oh, we're not big enough. So I'll have to get a tape measure for that, or I'll just have to measure half. Alright, so roughly 100 millimeters on each side. So we'll just call that. So from the tangent point here to here, we're 100. And then we got the top. Like we're about 110. 110. And for our slot, we are call it 35 to the outside. And the width, like we're clearance for 6 millimeters, so we'll just call that 7. Where'd I go with that? How did I lose that so fast? Oh, there it is. So, 7. This guy. 50. Height. Call it 40. These little guys. Call it 10.5. Height. Oh, he's a little bit bigger. I'll call that 7.5. Alright, so now we are center line about 145 millimeters. Let's check out our radius. I call that 15. Here. Call that 10. Okay, I don't know if I have enough to measure. Well, I can do this. Let's see where the radius is roughly stop. I'll call that 115. Alright, I need a reference dimension from here. Call it 16.5. Then probably better to go from here to here. Call that 70.5. Here, here. The only thing we're going to need will be this guy, which can't get. That's about, yeah, 200 millimeters. So we got that. This is to the widest point. About hard to measure that. Oh, 175. Damn it. Alright, overall, we've got, did that one. 110. Oh, we did do that. Getting muddy here with my lines. Okay. Alright, got that one. I'm going to do this guy. Draw roughly what I see. Big opening in the center. 2 holes. So here. 120. Oh, 75. Boy, inside. Well, this is where we're going to have to kind of make our adapter here, because we're going to have to make a plate that goes off that mounts on those 2 holes on this bracket. I guess I'm more concerned about the outside and then this rough overall shape. So when I'm drawing things like this that are really, really funky, like as this is a huge bunch of compound radiuses in here, if it was like more of a diamond with a radius, then we could figure it out. But I think this one will just trace it, because then I can draw it up and then print it 1-to-1, and I can cut it out and I can figure out how close I am. Oh, I guess I can put the holes in it too, maybe, for reference. There, so we got 1-to-1. Then I'll be able to at least guesstimate when I'm in the CAD system. And then I can print one out, cut it out, the perimeter, lay it on top of it. I'm like, okay, good enough. So here, we're pretty good. Now I'm going to kind of guess on this. I may or may not, I'll have to put some clearance holes here, because we've got to be able to have room for the taillight lens here to go through. But other than that, I think this is good enough for now. So we'll have to get this over into my other place and draw it up, and we'll start sending stuff out, and we'll get some stuff laser cut. Maybe even I'll 3D print some of these plates, and we'll mock them up before we spend the money and get something laser cut and waste that money if we got to make a tweak or a revision. All right, so put this towards the back burner, and this will have to be for another time when we've got something that we can actually test fit. So if you're going to try to do something fun and cool, I hope that helps out just a little bit on how to get there for people that don't normally doing some of the design engineering stuff. I think now we'll move on to the decals and we'll get those in. So here we are on the left side of the bike. So we're going to start laying out what we're going to do for our decals. So unfortunately, we got to take our Trail Buddy sticker off. Going to get rid of this warning sticker. And this looks kind of official, so I guess we'll leave this one on. It's got a lot of nomenclature here or details on the system of the motorcycle. Got some tune-up specifications, got your spark plug type you need, idle speed, fuel, yada, yada, yada. Nobody reads that anyways, but for us, we need to get this clear because this is where our decal is going. So we'll remove this, make way for our swish decal. That off. Oh, we ain't keeping this one. Nobody likes wearing stickers. So now to prep our area, we want to make sure that, I don't know if it picks up in the camera, but you can see all little fingers, greasy marks on here from people touching it, me and other people. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to make sure we get, now you can use a Windex, plastic cleaner, or maybe a light multi-purpose cleaner, but what we need to do is we just got to clean this area here. We need to prep it so that way, one, if there's any little goo left from the stickers or decals we took off, we got to get that off of there. And if there's any grease on here, the sticker is going to want to lift, and that just will be a waste of money on the sticker we just purchased. So we'll get our materials here together and we'll get ready to clean this up and ready to apply decals. So the 1978 decals, pretty much anything after, I don't know, 73, a little more difficult to set up. The earlier ones, which are the more popular bikes, are a lot easier with the stripe. At least easier for me anyways. But done so much more. I would say they're a little more difficult because they're independent from one another. Just to get it to print nicely and wrap around the frame. Again, here I'm wiping off all the grease from fingers and working on the bike. Now what we're going to do is we're going to figure out where we want these to lay. We want to try to make them as close as we can to the original, but we've got to, looks like we're going to be going over this decal anyways, at least on this side. So for the 78, they run about here, just below the key. And then we've got our Mini Trail 70 Honda. That goes here. So one thing to do, let's say if you're working on an original bike, before you remove the decals, it's always a great idea to try to give yourself some reference dimensions off any known points and take some pictures of it, because that way when you go to reapply the decal, it'll be a lot easier for you to find the locations. For us, we don't have that advantage, so I think I'm just going to try to wing it based on what I remember from all the bikes that I've done. Usually these swishes in the back here are just below the radius, below the seat. In the lower part, there's a protrusion here and a flat area. That's usually just below that. Then the Mini Trail, the top of that, I always try to get either just below this or right in line with it or flush with it. And everything kind of tapers down towards the front of the bike. So it's kind of roughly where I want it. I'm going to grab myself some blue painter's tape and give myself some marks so that way when I go to apply it, I'm not just guessing. So we've got our little blue tape. They don't need to be very big. I'm going to tape this up here for now. And get it where I want it. Now you also need to take an account for the concaved and convex areas here, because that'll change where this upper and lower part apply. So I like to try to form it to fit that a little bit at first. Then I will apply that. Now, what I like to do is I'll give myself some targets that I will align when I go to apply the decal. Take the key out of here. I want to be about here, away from it enough to where I don't run into that. Now I'll grab my marker. I'll put that where I want it. I'll give myself some little tick marks that I can align with this transfer paper when I go to apply it. So I've kind of got my edge of my tape is just a hair away from my transfer paper for release or decal holding stuff or whatever you want to call it. And I've got my lines right in line. So that way when I go to apply it, I can hold it, pinch it here and get these where it needs to go. Then I can hit the center and then roll the air out. Now, if you're not used to doing this often, and or I probably should myself, but you could spritz it a little bit with a mixture. I like to use the stuff you get from the auto parts store for applying window tinting. That's like the perfect mix. If I'm doing something really, really large, I tend to get bubbles underneath it, but for some of the smaller stuff, I don't as quick. I think for this, we'll probably be able to get away with it. So we got to remove. Try to get our decal to go to our all right, here we go. So I also make sure your hands are clean when you're doing this. You can kind of hear my fingers sticking. So if you got dirt or grease on your fingers, that'll also make for a decal that won't apply well. All right, so I'm going to press in the center. I'm going to work the air out. Then I'm going to come down. This is where it gets tricky, where we have these shapes or these waves. And what I'm trying to do is just gently, because what will happen is it'll fold or it'll get air back there. All right, there we go. There's our swish. Now, before I pull this off, I'll get my applying squeegee and I'll try to put a little more force on here than I can otherwise, but we'll leave this on here now until I get my Honda ready. That way I can make marks on here if I want to, where I need to go. I think what I'll do is I will take this old one off. I don't need it anymore. I will apply this roughly where I want it. Looks pretty good. I don't want my Honda here to probably get below where this radius part is. So I got it just kind of on that edge where it starts to kind of concave in. All right, so I'm liking where I've got it there. And I'm going to use my paper again as a guide. That way when I go to stick it, I've got my left and right, and I'll get my marker again. That will make my little alignment marks. Hold that. There, and that'll help us get close there. Take this off. Now, as you're peeling that, depending how new or old the decal is, a lot of times, boy, they really like to stick to this. If you really roll it sharp, pretty much 180 degrees back again, it helps it a lot. Now, this is a lot easier because it's just like one big decal, but some of the other ones were let's say the lettering is independent, boy, that can be a troublesome because it'll want to stick to the paper that's below. All right, so we'll get our line. I'm going to start in the center, roll myself to my target. I'm off just a hair, but I think that'll be okay. Roll out all the air. So when I'm doing this, I'm always kind of starting, and it doesn't matter if you go this way and out or this way and up. You don't want to go like just this, because then you just have air trapped there everywhere. Now the air will work its way out to a degree. And you can also take an X-Acto knife if you find you've got stuff on there and just give it just a little itty bitty prick where the bubble is, and then you just lightly press towards that little part where you hit it. Now, it's great if you're going to do it, if you try to hit it on something where you can't see it, let's say the separation of the 7 here in the black, right on that edge, that'd be if there was a bubble there, that'd be the way to do it. So, make sure I have my squeegee clean. Now, you want to do this before you take this transfer paper off. I'm calling it transfer paper, that's just because I don't know the right word for it. But if you do this on top of your decal, you will scratch the crap out of your nice new decal that you spent your hard-earned money on. There we go. We don't have to go to, we don't gotta go crazy with it. We just want to make sure we've got good pressure everywhere to really start that adhesive to make its bond. We'll get rid of our little target marks. Here, and then we will start to remove our paper transfer. So this is very similar. You're going to want to roll this thing back 180 sharp. Maybe press down on it as you're doing it. Now, if you get to an area and it wants to keep lifting and sticking to this, I recommend starting another spot and going back the other way. But this one, these are pretty new. Haven't been sitting around very long, so these are working great. All right, so I got that. Gently start this. There we go. Now you got to be careful going back here on these, because these are where I was talking, where they're not just one big continual decal, they're all 3 separate little pieces. We want to make sure this doesn't pull up on us as we're trying to remove this stuff. All right, here we go. All right, I think that turned out pretty good. Now we're looking more like a mini trail for 1978. So earlier I was talking about our badge here. So you can kind of see right off the height difference already. It's maybe, boy, almost an inch taller, at least 3/4 of an inch. The width, it's maybe a 1/4 inch bigger. So we could maybe just stick that on there, but I don't know what we'll do. I think I'm going to leave it off for now until I kind of figure out what I want to do, because maybe we can even get these made. It's probably maybe, I don't know how much they would actually move or people would buy them, but I could get this here printed out from our supplier in this size. Now, obviously it wouldn't be the right scale. It would be skewed a little bit. So that would be something you'd want to consider. Or what I could do is try to center it up and down so it's equal up and equal down, because right here it's not that far from where it starts to cave in. But we'll work with that later. And if you are putting these on, one thing you want to note is, you see a little Honda wing we have here? Now, this is, you always want the wings to fly forward. So like a bird would fly, this is wrong, because bird don't fly backwards. Bird goes forward. So this here is actually for the other side of the bike. So as I sit on the motorcycle, this is actually the right sticker, and the left sticker, assuming these are made correctly, the wing would be going the other way. That would be the left side. So here's it. Now the other side we'll set up, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but we'll do that real quick because it's really the same setup. Now, what you might want to do is you might want to measure maybe somewhere, maybe from the center of the neck here to the other side. So that way you can at least get them to where they're close. Or what I've done before in the past is I've taken a piece of tape and I've gone up and over and around, and I'll get up on top of the motorcycle and I'll just double check and I'll move that strip of tape around until I know that these two decals will be in line with one another on the left and right side of the bike. We'll get to the other side and do that. So this side is very similar to the other. We're going to get these off and we're going to clean up all of the grease and the finger marks. No bubbles, and we look good. So on to our blinkers. Onto the back. So here are our new blinker assemblies that I think look really kind of nice because they look very similar to the original versus these elliptical things that really don't follow any kind of design cues with the rest of the motorcycle. So we're going to swap these out. Now to do that, just take note of what plugs go where. We already have these loose from when we changed out our luggage rack assembly. So I've got these plugs labeled with ground or left turn, right turn. That'll just kind of make it easier for you when you go to plug everything back together. So here's the difference between the two. Actually, just a little bit smaller. Get these guys in. There's our blinkers. So we're getting a little closer. We got our decals on. The blinkers really seem to set it off, and the decals. We'll be working on our tail light now that we've got all those dimensions done. So we'll go over to the machine shop design house and we'll work on that next time. But here we're going. So I'm really hoping this inspires everybody to, you don't have to have a real Honda to have fun with this type of motorcycle. So get out, get a clone, and get moving. So I hope you like this parts, the bike, what we're showing, and you can find more of what you see here on mytrailbuddy.com.